understanding of our real-time inventory capabilities, I want to walk you through how you can take advantage of that inventory to really understand the vulnerabilities that impact your assets and ultimately start to take workflow to be able to manage those vulnerabilities. So if we go into devices, we're going to pick a particular asset. Let's look at some high risk assets, more likely to have vulnerabilities. Let's drill into this particular asset. So this is a Schneider Electric PLC here. If we scroll down, we can start to understand the overall risk associated with this particular asset, as well as also some of the very specific vulnerabilities that are impacting this particular asset. Now, one of the key things and most common ways that organizations understand and try to assess the severity of a vulnerability is using the CVE details and specifically the CVSS score. So that CVSS score shows both how exploitable that particular vulnerability and also what is the impact if that vulnerability is exploited to the system. Now, the key thing here with the CVSS score, that CVSS score is really showing both the exploitability and impact of that vulnerability in more of a lab setting, which is not at all like what's actually in your environment. And the reality is that you can have a very high CVSS score of 9 or 10. It may affect a particular asset in your environment that's buried behind multiple defenses, has no internet communications, and the net result is it could be not exploitable at all. Whereas you could have a lower CVSS score of a 6 on a host that is level 3.5, exposed potentially to the internet, far more important for you to handle and resolve that particular vulnerability, even though it has a lower CVSS score. So since you really shouldn't depend solely on that CVSS score, what we provide you is really a multi-factor risk score that does take into consideration 15 different factors to calculate that overall risk score for your particular assets. You can ultimately focus on the highest risk assets in your environment. Now that risk score, again, leverages a number of different factors. It does include, of course, the vulnerabilities impacting that particular device, what their overall CVSS score is. It also considers its network communications. Where in the network is it? Is it communicating to the internet? Just to give you an idea of what that looks like. In addition to those factors, we do provide you a simulator. And so you can start to, as you're trying to understand how do you lower the risk of this particular asset, you can actually go through and say, well, what if I resolve a couple of vulnerabilities? This particular host is actually communicating to the internet. Maybe it shouldn't be. From a enforcement, currently there's no network enforcement in place. What if we actually put a enforcement in place for this particular asset? And so again, you can role play out a couple of different variables here and ultimately see how that overall impacts the risk score. So that gives you an idea how that risk score is used. Again, on this particular asset, you can see the vulnerabilities that are impacting this particular asset. Now, the reality is you're